Welcome, everyone, to the first session this morning. This panel has been titled Collaborating for Community Impact, Innovation in Co-Designing and Co-Creating Community Spaces. Very exciting topic for the panel this morning. My name is Stephanie Grisbringus. I'm a staff member with the Toronto West LIP, and I'm just facilitating this panel, and really the panel is going to sort of facilitate itself as we go along. But just quickly how this next hour is going to run, I'm going to introduce the panel, and I'm just going to quickly read an overview of this panel because I think it gives some context for this particular group of presenters. Complex community issues require collaborative responses, not just from the social sector, but from everyone who cares about creating inclusive neighborhoods. Based on the inspirational work of the Community Design Initiative, people are often referring to it as CDI, is that CDI, you'll hear about that, in East Scarborough. This innovative cross-sectoral panel will explore the point at which their passions and their mandates intersect to create inspiring youth-designed community spaces. This group has renovated 2 resource centers, built a community-based commercial-grade kitchen, and most recently collaborated to design and build an award-winning water and shade structure known as Skyoswale. Is that okay? The Community Design Initiative, the CDI, is an inspirational example of where neighborhood youth and architects, property owners, designers, bureaucrats, and community organizers bring the best of their talents, skills, and resources to make one community a better place to live. Really inspiring. I'm going to quickly introduce, let me see if I can do this in order so it makes more sense to all of you. Zach El-Halou is Operations Manager for Canadian Apartments Properties Real Estate Investment Trust, CAPREIT, managing 4000 and 4010 Lawrence Avenue East, among other properties in the East Scarborough area. He's been working closely with the East Scarborough Storefront in developing the local community since 2009 and has been a member of the Storefront Steering Committee and Nominations Committee since 2014. Elise Hoop has been the project manager at the City of Toronto's Tower Renewal office since its founding in 2009. Tower Renewal is an initiative to improve Toronto's older apartment communities and the neighborhoods around them through environmental, social, and economic improvements. Elise has a range of experience from community work like hands-on resident engagement, coaching property managers to achieve high-performance rental buildings, high-level policy, and research work in the areas of energy efficiency, housing, and infill development. All right, organized here. Calvin Kangara is the coordinator of resident leadership structures with the East Scarborough Storefront. His responsibilities include overseeing the activities of the Residents Rising Community Association and the 4000 and 4010 Lawrence Avenue East Tower Tenants Group. His responsibilities also include creating sustainable structures to foster resident leadership related to sports and creating a new model of support for resident-led grassroots organizing with various stakeholders. Ajit Bhatia is a community resource specialist at the East Scarborough Storefront. His role entails connecting community residents of the Kingston Galloway Orton Park with programs and services offered at the Storefront as well as around Toronto. Ajit is currently studying psychology and public policy at York University and aspires to be in the business of building community together. And Sherry Lynn, as the creative director and partner at archiTEXT, Sherry brings in-depth experience as a facilitator leading small and large-scale stakeholder groups through collaborative problem solving and creative solutions, as well as building community leadership and capacity. Her recent collaborations in citywide initiatives, such as 101 Day Festival with Evergreen CityWorks, included co-developing a citizen engagement strategy that involved weekly workshops bringing individuals, organizations, agencies, and corporations together to create urban interventions for the city. Her work in capacity building and stakeholder engagement includes working with the potential applicants in the Ontario Trillium Foundation's newly launched Youth Opportunities Fund, where she uses a human-centered design thinking process to help applicants through the application process challenges. Sherry is the lead mentor in the Community Design Initiative. Fantastic. We are really excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Stephanie. So just to kind of give you guys a general overview of what the next hour will be like, we're just going to talk a little bit about our story, talking a little bit about the birth of our CDI project, giving you a little bit more insights and background to who we are up here, as well as kind of sharing some of our ingredients, as some people have called it. People always ask us, like, oh, what's the magic? How did this happen? Well, we're going to share some ingredients with you. And then we're going to open it up to discussions at the end. But again, this is really just a conversation. If you have any questions as we're kind of speaking, just feel free to jump in with any questions along the way. It's not, I mean, we're sitting around and we're at the front, but it's really an informal discussion that we're having.
Sherry, I was also given this
Oh.
recipe. Should I pass it?
Yes. So,
Okay.
just as a fun token kind of thing, rather than just writing your notes down on a notepad, we actually made some recipe cards for you guys. So, you guys can write down your own ingredients. It's kind of like when you cook in a kitchen, everyone has their own recipe. So we're going to talk about what has worked really well for us, and you can kind of take what may or may not work for you guys, or may work for you guys back to your communities as well. So our story. So who we are, how we met. We had some changes as to who is up here today. So we had some kind of sub in, sub out kind of thing. So we'll just kind of talk about who we are here at this table and how we met. So maybe we'll start with the most important is a resident. So Ajib.
So my name is Ajib, and kind of I got involved as a youth volunteer, kind of just after the beginning of the CDI, right after our first year. And I got involved just to do my volunteer hours kind of for high school. And then meeting with Sherry and our other mentors and getting hands-on kind of architecture and development and design was a really interesting narrative for me that I guess we'll later discuss. And so along with myself, we had a group of, I think we had a core group of 10 to 15 youth who came in every Thursday. And so we also had a collaborative of youth in the area and also local residents from 4010 behind us. So we had gardeners and seniors and a whole wealth of different residents come in through different phases of the CDI program to really punch in on where we were speaking the key issues that affected them.
And so next we have obviously the storefront, because that is what we were designing. So Calvin, who is from the storefront.
Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, just talk a little bit about the storefront.
Well, I got involved in this at a very later stage as a resident engagement worker, and I work for the East Scarborough Storefront, which was the leading agency in this project, and of course the Storefront found all the other people that are on the table through its mandate of facilitating collaboration and building community in the neighborhood of East Scarborough. The East Scarborough Storefront itself does not offer any programs and services to the community. What it does is that it facilitates collaboration for others to do their work in the community. And so the Storefront has 3 circles. One of the circles, I was supposed to draw those circles, but I don't have a flip tech, but it's okay. One of the circles involved a service delivery hub, which is the way we support, there are key things that we do as the Storefront. One is the collaboration.
Service delivery.
Service delivery.
Service delivery, which is more or less supporting people. And then the other circle is building community. And the other is facilitating collaboration. Within the service delivery, what we have is we host social service agencies to host programs and services where residents in the community can access, and they range from housing, settlement, health, recreation, and many more. Currently, we're working with about 35 host agencies that use the storefront for one-stop services, and an agency might come for a day, depending on the need and the nature of the service. It might come once in a month. And the other circle of building community, that's where most of the neighborhood organizing work happens. And we have a host of other organizations that are involved in neighborhood organizing in the neighborhood. They may not necessarily involve the social service agencies, but these are more like academic institutions, the City of Toronto, the policymakers, government, and many more others. And at the facilitating collaboration, we have two networks that we are trying to work with at the moment. One is a resident network, and the other one is a neighborhood network, which involves a host of the neighborhood organizations, and the resident network involves two community associations, one called the Residents Association, which is more concerned about raising awareness and participation of residents in community building activities. And the other one is the cross-community organizing, which involves a host of organizing, organizations coming together to plan together and develop shared goals and agenda, and also come up with a shared means of evaluating goals. But what we do believe in as the storefront is that the magic does not happen in the building community circle. It doesn't happen in the service delivery circle. It doesn't either happen at the facilitating collaboration circle. It happens at where all the circles interact. That is where we all come together. And we found that only when we come together and work together, that's when we see transformation happening. So the initiative that we are going to talk about, the CDI, is an outcome of the magic at the intersection. Okay.
Great, thanks, Calvin. And so I am from archiTEXT. We were one of the first partners at the table with the storefront. And I'll talk a little bit about how we came to the table probably I will talk now. So the CDI program essentially was birthed out of this initial small fund that came from the city to build some sort of outdoor sculpture piece in Scarborough. And so Zara, my business partner, my other half, she made the trek from downtown Toronto out into Scarborough back 6 years ago now. Went, knocked on Anne's door, and was like, so what kind of art thing can we do together? One of our mandates is actually to involve as many people into as many unusual suspects into conversations as we possibly can. And so her first thought is, when she walked into the storefront building, she said, this building is a former police substation. Does not seem very representative of a community service hub. So rather than just doing a piece of art, which would be beautiful and amazing, let's involve the youth and redesign the space. And from that came the Community Design Initiative, which, since 2008, we've been working with the storefront, with various other partners, such as SUSTAINABLE.to, who unfortunately could not be here today, and I didn't have time to take the logo off, but he's called, unfortunately, couldn't make it. But with other partners, such as City Toronto, CAPREIT, variety of other partners, but we have been working with them, as Ajit had said, on a weekly basis, to mentor the youth and help design this building, which is really now just kind of the platform for other great things that have been happening in the community. So that's kind of how we came to the table. Elise.
Hi, I'm with the City of Toronto from the Tower Renewal office. I'm one of the project managers there, and one of the great things about these kinds of organic collaborations is that they do grow over time and they stretch out and start to attract in other people. And the positive energy and the fun and the sort of incremental improvements that you're able to do as you're moving along will actually attract other resources and other interests to you. So I actually came in quite late in the process. These guys were just trying to finalize their zoning approval for the second story expansion and the sport court on the site when I got involved to try to help really connect and navigate them through the city processes, because the city's a big place, and understanding how best to strategically navigate those things sometimes needs a bit of insider advice.
Thanks, Elise. And Zach.
Yeah, we as a landlord, we have a property behind the Storefront building, which is 4010 Lawrence. And to take a little bit, or to give you a background of this property, the Storefront building was occupied by the police, Toronto Police Station, 43 Division. And this is when we first bought the property, and the police was, of course, had a high fence around his buildings, and it's exactly inside our property. We're holding this building up from three sides. And at one point they had to move to their new location, which is a little bit farther on Lawrence Avenue, and then Storefront came in. For some reason, when the police was our neighbor, we had too much trouble in the buildings. And it's true story. And we find an obligation to a neighboring obligation to meet these people, see what they're up to and what they're doing, and they did the connection, they did the contact, and we since involved with their projects, and we find out that our residents are very interested in these services of Storefront, and our connections and work together has grown throughout the years and throughout the projects. And now we have tear down all these fences, and we have more projects coming in. The tenants and the residents go in and out. They are involved with all the projects, and they are getting the benefits of Storefront's services and activities. And we find out that it's the right project to be involved, and it's the right project to get our residents and community get the benefit of. And we decided to go further with this and get more involved, and we have a lot of projects, 3 years and 5 years projects coming in and with our partnership. And they accepted me, and I was nominated and elected as a member in the steering committee of Storefront. So we're involved deeply in their projects, and we're looking forward and with positive view towards the future, and hoping that whatever we have in pipelines as a project to materialize very soon, and all these benefits will be provided to our residents and community.
That's great, thanks, Zach. And just so you know, oh yes, go ahead.
Just a question.
Yes.
Sorry, I apologize for lack of knowledge or information, but I'm just wondering, is Storefront a community hub? I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, it is a community hub, but it's a super hub that hosts other hubs. What we realized when the Storefront was created back in 1999, it was created as a need for not having many social service agencies in the community, despite the fact that there was a need for that, and that services were being provided by others who are located outside the neighborhood. So the Storefront saw the need of creating that hub where it can host various organizations to provide services from the area.
So is it the same as the United Way hubs, or is it not?
Not exactly, because
But
the
the same
United Way
model.
hubs themselves provide programs and services, but we as an organization don't provide those services. Instead, it's other agencies that come and use the storefront to provide their services, and we are not in charge of, we only facilitate them providing those services, while the conventional United Way hubs do provide services themselves directly.
Thank you.
Great. So, you know, as I said, we have a slew of other partners. You know, I could probably just take the rest of this time to talk about our partners, but just wanted to, you know, highlight a few. We've had other funders, we've had other architecture firms, we've had people that you wouldn't think normally may come together, coming together on this project. And so, next slide. So what this is, we've talked a lot about our community design initiative. And, you know, we have designed, as Stephanie has mentioned, we've designed a lot of incredible spaces in and around the storefront. And what it started off was as Ajib said, it was a weekly Thursday night mentoring session. We taught, you know, we brought in all sorts of professionals to talk about all aspects of design, from, you know, site planning, zoning, bylaws, talk about interior design, architecture, construction, all sorts of things. And where we could, we got the youth involved, actually, like, you know, not exactly hammer to nail, because that wasn't allowed, but, you know, they did paint a lot of the services within the storefront, and they got involved as much as they could. And where this is, in case you guys aren't familiar with the storefront, it is on Lawrence Avenue East, between Markham Road and Morningside, I guess, are the major intersections. And so the red little, like, L-shaped building, it would be the storefront, and then the two kind of T-shaped buildings would be the Capri buildings behind it, and Morningside Park is all the green stuff over there. So the Scarborough storefront, this is the building that we walked into back in 2008. Hadn't changed by 2010, so it's still the same picture. But as you can see, it's a little police substation. This is what we were envisioning for 2013. We have a sports pad in the back with the sky swale so this is a rendering, but this is the case where the actual image just blows a rendering out of the picture. So this is the actual space. So imagine we had Toronto hydro poles that were given to us. So they are incredibly large. You can see them from like miles away. We have the sports court. It's an incredible space. If you guys haven't been, I would highly recommend a visit. And the pergola, which is in front of the community kitchen at the front of the building. And this is our commercial grade community kitchen, which is also beautiful, incredible. Many of the things have brought in a variety of different partners, having donated a variety of different things to the storefront for the project as well. The youth had painted this mural over 3 or 4 months. So it was an incredible project where, like, literally everything here was painted by the youth. There was, the professional youth designers who actually created this mural.
Yeah, we also brought in a professional painter to teach them some skills.
Exactly. We brought in, a local artist, to kind of a local muralist, to show them, how do you actually piece together a mural? It's not quite the same thing as creating a painting, and especially how do you do a mural on a large scale. So this was a very fun project. When this happened, so as I mentioned, we started in 2008. 2009, we had our first charrette. We brought in roughly 30 of the kids from Storefront down to the Design Exchange, which is at King and Bay. We had a charrette. We started our mentoring in 2010. Has been going since, and so 2010 were phases 1 and 2. 2011 was 3 and 4. 2012 we actually opened the resource center in the front, so the front resource computer areas. We also opened the Eco Food Hub, which is that commercial grade community kitchen that I mentioned. 2013 was the construction of the Skyoswale, And 2014, so just this past summer, was the big reveal of the sports pad and the Scarborough, which was incredible. And this is hopefully the vision for the near future. It's going to be an expansion on the west side of the building, plus a second story addition. That was planned way back when, and obviously, we will work again with the youth to go through the youth and the community actually at large to work through the details. But that's what we're hoping for. And so, how this works, there's a lot involved, and anyone else kind of jump in. I think one of the core elements of this was mentorship at the beginning. So in order to have true participatory kind of design aspects of it, it's not about the designers designing something and asking for feedback. That's not how it worked for us. And this is why, you think back, they started in 2009 and 2014 was a 5-year, progress. The reason for that is because, true participatory design actually takes a long time. So it was all about working with the community, working with the youth, getting them to design something. And then us as professionals is, working with the city, working with other professionals to make sure we meet all the codes and, we make sure that things are done according to the regulations, and we're doing really all the checks. So crossing the T's and dotting the I's. But the youth were the ones that made all the major decisions. And I always laugh, and unfortunately is not here, but I always tease her that when we first started this, one of the color schemes that the youth had come up with, which had a great reason behind it, was using the colors orange and blue, which are complementary colors, but they had detailed reasons as to why they wanted that color scheme and where those colors were going. Anne's first reaction was, "Really, Sherry? And you cannot say anything. This is participatory design, youth-led, community-led. So this is what the youth and the community have decided." So she stepped back, she let it happen, and now she says she loves it. But back then, her first reaction was, "Really?" And so, this is kind of really the heart of how this had happened, is because everyone was really, really, really willing to work with it. There was nobody that was like, "No, we're not going to do it this way, we're just going to do it this way." It was like, no, it was a true inclusive participation.
And I think to add to that also, I think a vital component to the project was leadership reciprocity. So adults coming in and accepting that they don't know everything, and letting the youth participants know that the adults are also here to learn from them. So there's this exchange of knowledge, and we see this with the development of the Scarborough Wheel. So when youth were designing, why don't we rip out the fence that's around our building and use it to kind of create this unimagined design. The mentors were kind of like, well, wow, that hasn't been done before.
And the answer to that was, that's a great idea. It hasn't been done before, but we'll figure out how to do it. And so that's why we say this is, patent pending Scarborough Wheel. So the youth can now say they actually hold a patent within that community. And one of the questions that people do always ask is, what is the cost of this? And truthfully, there is a hard cost. Things have to. Yes.
The cost. I just wanted to mention something around the collaboration between archiTEXT and the SUSTAINABLE.TO, which were the main organizations involved. One of the things that we actually noted that helped the mentoring of the youth, and ultimately the youth mentoring the adults into creating those other spaces, was things that are taken so much for granted. It's very easy for an organization to collaborate with another organization because they share certain values, the language they use, the style in which they present and talk. And one of the most difficult things, especially collaborating with residents, whether they are youth or whether they are adults, is establishing that comfort level whereby residents feel that there is no that power imbalance between organizations and residents, because especially in suburban areas, there has been this history of mistrust, especially around authority or around structure. So, for instance, I've had problems doing outreach, asking residents to get involved because they have said, well, you know, organizations give promises which they don't fulfill. We've been, misled in the past, so we don't want to take this path again. So establishing that relationship and that comfort level and trust between residents and the organization was very key. It took time, of course, but was very, very key as a very critical ingredient in making this happen.
Thanks, Calvin. And so, sorry, 1 second. So what does it cost? And
Sorry, but
Yes.
I had a question related to what you said.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of the people who were participating in the youth, were they mostly from those 2 buildings by Capri?
Not necessarily.
Was that open to everybody around the neighborhood, or?
It was open to everybody. A lot of them were from those 2 buildings, simply, proximity. But, people came from all around within that community, though.
And how did you approach them with the idea? Like, what kind of outreach did you do? Was it going into the buildings? How did you get them to come and participate?
So I think I can speak from my side as a youth, and then maybe Calvin as an outreach worker for Storefront. But for me, literally, as a participant there, and for some of the other core youth that were already involved, it was literally, well, we're going to go to our school and to the friends that we know and tell them about this opportunity and kind of bring them into this world. So it was kind of like the warm body approach, some would call it. Hey Jeremy, I know this program's going on, why don't you come in? They're offering food. If you need bus fare, they'll offer you bus fare. Come in and work with these designers, the architects, and it's this ownership of the community that you're being offered. So it was going to schools. We had a student going to Cedarbury who posted flyers of the program in their school, the guidance counselor. I did the same for my high school and a couple others in the area.
For the adult part, Ajib did the youth part for obvious reasons. He's for obvious reasons. As the mentorship program was going on, I was at that time doing a lot of work with the 2 towers as part of the Tower Neighborhood Renewal program, which maybe Elise will talk a little bit later. And we did not have so much a relationship with the residents from the 2 buildings, apart from them coming to the storefront and accessing the individual services. But there wasn't a real intensive engagement with the residents to have built a relationship that would enable us to convince them very easily. So we did a lot of outreach. I'm talking about 2 years of outreach here. Going out, setting up a table in the 2 towers. It was the first approach of outreach, going into the actual buildings and setting up a table at the lobby and talking to residents as they come in and out of the buildings. And it was easy talking to them in that kind of an environment because, setting a table on the roadside would be very difficult to talk to people because, they are just going, very, very quickly doing their business and they may not have so much time to talk to you. But at the lobby, it's a 15th floor, and the elevator moves slowly, so they're there with you, and they have no option than to talk to you. So that helped a lot in us telling them, and the reasons why it also worked is because we had done a lot of survey. We put flip charts at the lobby and asked residents to come and talk about what their priorities were, what kind of changes did they want to see in their own neighborhood, and they flip chart those for a period of time. And one of the key things that they talked about, one of the top 10 priorities was a play area for their neighborhood, and the fact that they had already identified a play area as a need for their community, it was easy then to tell them, now let's move on to the next step. Who is interested in being part of creating that space?
That's great. And so, just to quickly touch on this. So, the cost of it is an unfortunate reality here. And so there are costs to it. We've been really fortunate to have some really collaborative funders involved who have been willing to pay for things that I think maybe in the past haven't necessarily been identified as fundable, I guess. So some of it has been, developing curriculum to work with the youth. It has been, the mentoring sessions of working with the youth. Also keeping specific people involved in the project, both, within the East Scarborough Storefront as well as other partnering organizations. That being said, there has been also a lot of pro bono time involved in it. But it is a combination of pro bono time as well as hard costs, and finding kind of the right partners and right funders and bringing them to the table to get involved in this project. And so the next one, what is the impact? What has the impact been? What the impact has been? Okay. So, as I mentioned, we started off as maybe we'll do a community art project, and from there it's kind of exploded. We've gone to the CDI program. From there, we've brought in people such as Elise and Zach into the kind of more tower neighborhood renewal kind of aspect of it. And then even beyond that, the local planning board, which is really just looking at Scarborough and, the Kingston, Galloway, Orton Park area and Scarborough at large. And really just kind of expanding, using this as a platform, using this methodology as a platform of how you engage with residents, how you engage with youth, and where you can go from there.
And this is also a geographical representation of the storefront being community arts, and then CDI, and then the towers behind us as Tower Neighborhood Renewal, and local planning board geographically as all of Scarborough, kind of people collaborating coming together.
So this is where we kind of touched upon it already in our conversation, but kind of the different aspects of our ingredients that have been involved. So the seeds. Elise had a really good analogy of where opportunity meets momentum. So we've had the opportunity where the storefront has been in this community for a decade before this project started. So we had that trust that the storefront had already developed. Calvin had spoken about, there were other partners at the table, but we were able to leverage off of that trust that was already there. And also the momentum, there was opportunity at the storefront. There was a city-owned property that the storefront was sitting in that, kind of needed a little bit of love and a little bit of help with it. There was all of these the stars aligned a little bit for us in order for this to happen. And so you just want to acknowledge that you do need a little bit of stars aligning in order for this to happen. Not to say it can't happen, it would just take a little bit longer and probably would look a little bit differently. So in our case, this was one of them. And the language. I don't know if you want to, or Calvin want to speak a little bit about this, but just, us professionals all kind of speak a certain language in the built environment. That language may or may not translate well with those who aren't already kind of immersed in that language. And so what we were hoping that we did was be able to make that language more accessible. So when we came to the mentoring sessions, when we came to, to engage with the storefront staff as well, it wasn't about, speaking the architect language kind of thing. It was really just about speaking about how you build a community. And within that, there's a lot of a lot of similarities, a lot of shared language. And then so just the next slide. One of this, when we were talking about asset-based community development, from a designer's perspective, it often means infrastructure. From the kind of social services sector, it doesn't mean infrastructure. The asset is actually the people. The interesting part is we both get to the same goal and we both are trying to accomplish the same thing. We just use different aspects of it to accomplish it. And we have different tools in our belt. But the great thing is that we now share those tools. So one of the other storefront people that we worked with a lot, Jamie, who couldn't be here today, she often just kind of throws things in. She's like, it's a low berry wall over there, or she'll throw in kind of like designer speak, just be like, I know what you're talking about, and we'll do the same thing as well. Just like we now share the same language, which is also really cool. relationships. So Calvin spoke a lot about resident engagement, and so did Ajib. It's really about building that relationship, having that person that the residents, the neighborhood, the youth, that they trust. So, you know, obviously it would not have worked well if I went into the high schools and said, hey, we have this program, it's super fun, you should come. They'd be like, who are you? Why are you talking to us? We don't know you. Works way better to have a Jeep go in there and be like, hey, we have this program that's super cool and super fun, you should come. Obviously it has worked.
Yeah, I think what's also really important about relationships when we're talking about community engagement and programming is sustainability. And so when youth get involved in a project and they build relationships with the people who are facilitating them or with their peers, and then that project falls through because of funding or whatever the case may be, there's a lot of apathy there in kind of being more involved in the community because there's this fear of it happening again. And so one thing we really practice at Storefront is keeping those contacts very close. And so I still have the contact list of the people we met over the last 5 years. And when opportunities come up throughout the organization of volunteering opportunities or opportunities for certifications or internships, or whatever the case may be, those are who we contact, and we stay in touch with them, and they really appreciate that. That's how we mend and keep that mutual relationship going.
Yeah, and sometimes the challenge is always timelines. When a funder gives money for a specific project, it has a 2-year time frame, but relationship building has no time frame. And it's always very difficult to sell that to a funder. And it all translates into, even when you're structuring your program, when we have residents meeting, for instance, we have an agenda that runs from, it's just introduction, and then that will be followed by this activity that has something to do with that particular project, but we don't assign time for people to just sit and bond as part of the agenda. Because if we do that, we will be wasting time. So for me, I think giving time and space for this bonding and relationships to take place is very important. I can tell from my own personal experience where I have had the opportunity to do outreach with residents, and one of the goals when I go to do outreach is to talk about the storefront and dish out flyers. But gradually it grew into us, because the reason why I was doing that is because I have to report to my supervisor how many people I talked to and how many flyers I distributed. So I have numbers to go and report back. So I don't want, if I'm talking to a resident, so please, I'm done with you. I want to talk to the next person. But the organization's flexibility in understanding all those dynamics, and it is able to allow me to go out there without an agenda and do outreach and talk to people about their lives and let me know about who they are, instead of me keep telling them every day when I go to do outreach, have you heard about the storefront? This is what we do, and do you want to have changes? Even understanding where they come from, very, very important. So gradually my outreach became a time to get to know the residents, even by their names, which apartment building they live, and about their own lives. They feel respected. And when they come to talk to me the next day, they are coming to talk to me as a friend and not as an outreach worker from the storefront.
The other thing that's really interesting as well is that, as Calvin was saying, we don't schedule in time for you to get to know the people that you are maybe about to begin a collaboration with, or that you've already started a collaboration with. I always find that around the meetings, the most important part of the meeting is before the meeting and after the meeting. So almost pre-scheduling, please come 15 minutes early. We're gonna have, tea and just chat, get to know each other, or give yourself an extra 10 minutes at the end to get to know each other, or travel together. So most of the, good ideas and planning in my connection with the Storefront properties has been saying, hey, can I get the carpool ride with someone for the way home? That's an hour drive. So that's where we'd actually kind of start to come up with the next ideas and the next ideas.
Absolutely. And trust. And so again, with the whole idea behind relationship building is, you gain the trust of the residents. And as Calvin was saying, it's because he's spent the time. He gets to know people. You get to know their husbands and wives and families. You can ask about, oh, how was the soccer game last week? That kind of thing. Everyone really, and we say this a lot just within our partners, is that you're part of the family. And that's really, you really feel like you're part of the family. People ask about so and so and so and so all the time. Even if people aren't with certain organizations anymore, they're still part of that family. And that trust that you build is so important. Resident-led versus resident-inspired. So we're really walking with the residents. And I think, Elise and Calvin really kind of hit this home last week when we were talking about this, is that, everyone is walking together. So, you have residents, you have youth, you have professionals, you have people from the city, and you have all sorts of different people, different stages in life, different places kind of thing, but everyone is really walking together. There's nobody in front, there's nobody behind. When we're sharing information, it really is about sharing information. When we're mentoring, as Ajit had mentioned, it's a reciprocal mentoring process. We share some knowledge with the youth shares a lot of knowledge with us. There's, a coming together, which is super important for this type of process. Did you want to?
Yeah, and communication also very, very important. And of course, I need also to emphasize the being on the same page, because it's sometimes very tricky, especially with organizations and with residents. The residents are moving so slowly. The organization want to move faster because of the timelines again with the donor. And then you find that people are losing interest because they don't know where they are in this project. Sometimes when you work with residents as well, there is a lot of also relationship building amongst themselves that you have to take care of. When they are individuals, they're fine and you can work with them very okay as individuals. But when you bring them together to work together, then you see certain differences emerge, and there may be not, some people don't like each other, and you have to deal with those dynamics as well. And so the fact that I was part of that process to deal with the social issues, these are architects, they are planners. Their job is to come and do this technical stuff. So if social issues arise, who's going to deal with that? So I think having the element, even if you're dealing with a very technical project and residents are involved, that social life has to be incorporated in the negotiation. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is I don't know. I just lost it. I don't know whether I wanted to talk about the trust or the relationship building aspect of it. I'll come back to you if I
Okay.
So just to flag for you guys, we have about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. So we'll go super fast.
If I
and
can
then
pick
we'll-
up on something
Yes.
on just
Yes.
my observation as a landlord and live with the residents. The Storefront has succeeded in earning the trust of the residents and put their self on the map. And the hard work that Calvin himself personally I saw him doing the hard work and outreach to these people and these community members. They also created the drive to simply ask questions. Let's go to Storefront and ask, can my kid do this? Can I join the activity? Can I use the computer? Can I learn the language? So this type of drive to ask the question and to make the efforts and move to the center and ask this question, they really succeeded in this, and that's one of the successful aspects on how to attract people to their center.
Great. So, as you're talking about resident-led, we talk about biteable chunks. So the way we've always structured working with the community and working with the youth is that we're going to get you together and engage you and work with you to, you know, dream up something to happen. We make sure that that actually does happen. So yes, we do the large scale envisioning process of like, you know, within the store, around the storefront, what's, you know, a grand vision, what's a community vision. But out of that, what is a small thing we can do in 1 year or in 6 months? Just so we make sure that, you know, as we're saying, we don't lose people along the way. Because I think everyone has kind of spoken about that, is that you want to keep people engaged, keep people interested, and in order to do that, in order to keep the momentum going, is to make sure something actually happens. And so all of the things that we have mentioned that the storefront has done, all the design elements, has been phased out over the past 5 years, which is what's taken 5 years. But every element, it's like, you know, we do 1 semester with the youth, the next semester something actually happens out of it, something tangible, something physical, and a change can be seen. So, and then the next one is...
Just
yes.
trigger what I wanted to say. It's the issue of managing expectations, and that's how you also lose people. What are you expecting out of that relationship between, especially with residents? What is it that you're expecting out of this collaboration, and what are the timelines, so that you don't ask questions all the time. Oh, we came in, we are supposed to build this sports park, we've been talking about it and nothing is happening. People lose patience, especially young people. So getting everybody to understand what they expect from that relationship is very critical.
Absolutely. And then the other aspect is also community champions. So, you know, we have the champions among the youth, amongst the residents, amongst the different organizations, you know, from like, you know, Capri and other, you know, design firms, or we have these community champions, and they're so important to have all across the different sectors and all across the different disciplinaries. But essentially having community champions and keeping people engaged, we kind of push out community champions out of that process. Flexibility. So 2 aspects of it. Obviously things don't ever go according to plan. And so just making sure that all of the organizations are flexible and adaptable for that. And one of the key things that Elise had actually pointed out is, you know, a lot of times the doers are the decision makers, and we've been really fortunate in that process, in that the people at the table are able to actually make the decisions. And so, you know, if I commit us to doing something, we can actually do it. Or, you know, if somebody else commits to it, they can actually do it, as opposed to kind of going through the chain back in their organizations, which is still totally possible. That's just a different process and a different element to add to that kind of recipe. But in our particular situation, we were fortunate enough that all the doers were the decision makers. Yes, and so one of our favorite things that we came out of, you know, our last discussion was apparently we're all really good at improv. Because Paul, who unfortunately could not be here today, when we had the first charrette back in 2009, where we had the 30 kids kind of come in downtown to the design exchange for a charrette, we were like, okay, we need one more architect. Who can we call? And it was like through friends of friends, connection that we found Paul. And Paul's first answer was, so Paul, we need you for a charrette for tomorrow. He's like, that's great, I'm in. Then like 10 seconds later, he's like, what am I doing? So that has basically been everyone's response throughout this entire process is, okay, so this is what needs to happen. Everyone's like, that's great. What are we doing? And then we figure it out. And that's kind of our collaboration, is that we don't know what's happening. There's an idea that's happening here. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how it's going to happen, but everyone's first answer is yes and. And so we just kind of improvise, because things kind of, people come and go, things change along the way, but it's always yes. Outcomes. You know, we've developed a process with this. There's been a lot of capacity building, and, you know, just within the residents or within the community at large, there's been a lot of pride and ownership that's kind of brought back into that space. It's no longer a police station at all. It is the storefront. I don't know if any of you were at the storefront before all the renovations have happened, but there were actually jail cells in there, which is kind of really counter to what a community service hub should be. But now it completely does not look like that. It really is a storefront space and really embodies that. other personal growth, learning, everyone has a stake. So all of, I think Elise had pointed out, like all of the different partner organizations that come into this collaboration, obviously with any relationship, you want to get something out of it. It's not thinking about a me mentality, but it's really like, well, if I'm investing in this for a reason, right? And so I think everyone has their own reasons for entering into this partnership, and everyone has gotten something out of it. But one thing I really want to stress at the end of the day is it's really been fun. I don't think anyone has ever said, "Wow, that was not a great night," or "That was not a great meeting." And for myself, I know one of my challenges that I will admit to when we do the mentoring sessions. I used to live West End downtown and have to drive all the way to Scarborough at 3:30, 4 o'clock from downtown to Scarborough is not a fun drive for anyone that's driven that. There's been it's often like an hour, 15 minutes for that drive. So it's a long trek, a long drive. At the end of every single mentoring session, it's like, wow, that was great. Energized, really excited, so excited about the next week. But that drive itself is not fun. But the lesson I always learned, and I never quite remember, is like at the end of it, I'm always so excited. Like it's a really fun process, and I think that's why everyone's still engaged. And thank you. So we probably talked a little bit too long, but that's what happens when you get us talking about this project. But now, if you have any questions, yes.
I have a question. So other resident groups all over Toronto do have ideas similar to this, I'm sure. And how would you kind of give us advice on how to bring forward design ideas to bring into like a park, or how to create a sense of community similar to what you did at the Storefront by other resident groups?
By other resident groups?
Yes.
So part of it is, you need a core team to kind of shepherd and kind of keep all of the other residents and other partners kind of engaged. So in our situation, we have archiTEXT, Storefront, and SUSTAINABLE.to has been the core team from day one. And so you end up bringing in Capri, you bring in the City of Toronto, and you bring in all of these other partners, and you keep them in because this core team is in there. The other aspect is you need to, from my perspective, like you really need to kind of commit to it. If you're going to be there, you're there every week. If you're going to start something, you do it consistently every week. And it's not, in order to kind of to be authentic and for the residents to feel like it's also authentic, you need to kind of be with them throughout the entire process. And as we were saying, there's biteable chunks that come out of it. So you manage the expectations by promising something, and then you actually follow through with it. I think those are, from my perspective, kind of some of the kind of core elements.
So, for instance, your question would be, how do I work with a resident group to do this kind of design project in any neighborhood?
Let's say I'm part of a resident group, and we have an idea, and we'd like to bring forward this idea. Because I know from this initiative, the architects kind of came in and say, we want to have a public art. But let's say if this is initiated by a resident group, how can the resident group itself, who may not have the expertise, but they have the great ideas and the knowledge into the capacity building part of this, to bring forward their ideas for the project?
Sorry, can I just jump in 1 second? So in this case, the residents actually came out with the idea of wanting to renovate the building. We were talking about opportunity and momentum. We happen to have that opportunity where we're like, well, we need to do something in this community. And then the community was actually like, well, our building is kind of terrible. So rather than just creating a piece of art, why don't we take this opportunity to merge together our two different ideas of like doing something in the community together. In our case, we had thought maybe we would do art, but since the community doesn't actually want the art, let's do something about the building. And so looking for that opportunity I think is also really important. So if you have an idea to do something within your community, looking for the organization that might kind of partner with you on that in terms of being able to bring it forward. And so kind of looking for, there's no equivalent Storefront, but looking for a Storefront-like organization within your community to help kind of shepherd that and guide you.
So you're looking for a backbone organization that we'll have a staff person or two who can dedicate time to it and who have an understanding of kind of the broader community development issues and who can even just be there to answer the phone when, you know, and have an email account and all that kind of stuff, have some continuity to it. But then on the design side, if that's the kind of project you're going into, then the connections are often very personal, like Sherry was talking about, but they can also be that you contact, for instance, the OAA, which is the Ontario Association of Architects, and, you know, pitch a pro bono project. In terms of landscape architects, there's a group of landscape architects who've formed and have said, you know, we don't want to actually do full-fledged construction drawings, but we want to help community groups get from the very basic ideas to the concept plans so that they can have some renderings, they can have something which they can then use to pitch to funders and say, this is what I want to do, but I need more money to get the detailed drawings. So there are actually groups out there, and a lot of firms, from law firms to design firms, have a pro bono budget kind of set aside in terms of how many hours they can spend. So to go and, you know, approach them, it's not a foreign concept. Specifically when it's a resident group or a community organization that they know can't afford to, you know, to pull them on full time.
That being said, if you have any questions, come talk to the architects.
I can answer a question from a business mind,
Yeah.
and which is we start with the take advantage, right? So you need to with this today's technology and communication skills. It's very important for anybody who has something to say or something to do is to network. Networking is the name of the game these days, and we need to take advantage of how to grow your networking and get in touch with the people that may help you. And I think this forum is one of the events that you can take advantage of and network with the people that may help you with. And one thing can lead to another, and definitely you will reach to your goal.
Thank you. That was really informative.
There's a lot of answers to your question.
Are there any other questions? Now, are you here at the, like, are you here for the day? Are you
I'm not here for the day.
I'll be another 10 minutes or so, and then I'll be jumping on the bus, so come
Or
catch
at least
me.
can hop in my car.
If people wanted to follow up to contact you
Yes, yeah.
afterwards, you open
Yes,
to that?
definitely. Yeah. If you guys have any other questions, like, or anything. Yes.
I have a quick question. So in terms of doing outreach towards youth, did you ever engage in social media as a means to get to them? Like, was that something that happened? And do you think that, especially with the social media climate and whatnot, that's an effective means of engaging youth?
Yeah, we did engage in social media. Storefront has a website, so we put it up on the website. I'm not sure. I think we did it on our Twitter for the last year, maybe. I'm not sure.
In the beginning, we also had a Facebook group just for CDI as well.
Right.
So there were updates that was kept up through the Facebook group. So social media has been moved, probably not to its.
Yeah, I think it was more effective, honestly, using my Facebook account as a platform for that versus the Storefront one, because we want to attract youth who aren't really already engaged in volunteering in their community. And so, how do you do that? It's always a question that's being asked. How do you tap into those youth who are maybe not going down the right path or who aren't interested in social work or social services, and get them out? So I think one way, when I put it up on my Facebook and kind of spoke to the people that I know, that helped a lot. And the same goes for those youth who are involved and forwarding the flyer on their Facebooks also to their friends. So yeah, the same warm body approach kind of.
The other aspect of that too is don't try to bring in 12 complete perfect strangers from the community, because it's going to take them a long time to gel. But if everyone in the room knows one other person, it's a lot faster, and there's a lot more of a buddy system in terms of, hey, are you going this week? Oh yeah, I'm going this week. Or hey, I had an idea, will you back me up at the meeting? So sometimes you don't want to end up with just one giant peer group, so it becomes a clique. But if you can get a couple of people, you know, so that they have a kind of a buddy system, that's really a really good way to try to build the dynamics.
Okay, I know we're out of time and it's lunchtime, so people are probably hungry. But thank you, all five of you, for sharing your story. Such an exciting and inspirational story. And each of you brings your own piece, which I think is so interesting and really was exciting to hear